I never imagined our peaceful neighborhood dispute over my mom's garden would escalate to military-grade landmines buried in our yard. But when the police showed me security footage of the HOA board members planting explosives at 2 a.m., I realized this was about something far darker than community rules. How far would you go to protect your mother when the very people threatening her are the ones claiming to safeguard your neighborhood? I didn't expect to become the protagonist in a suburban war story, but here I am. 3 months ago, I returned to Willow Creek to care for Mom after her heart surgery. She raised me in this house with its wide porch and the ancient maple tree where she hung my tire swing 30 years ago. Coming home should have been easy. It wasn't. The day after I unpacked, a sharp knock interrupted the quiet. Margaret Pierce, a woman with flawless blonde streaks and a smile that never warmed her eyes, stood there, clipboard in hand. "You must be Lillian's son," she said. "I'm the president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. We need to talk about some violations." Mom was resting, so I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "What violations?" I asked. Margaret's manicured nail pointed to a list. The rose garden stretched 8.5 inches past our property line. The mailbox was an unapproved golden amber instead of earthy sienna, and the maple's branches drooped too low over the sidewalk. I rubbed my forehead. My mom just had triple bypass surgery. Can this wait? "Rules are rules," she snapped, clicking her pen incessantly. "Fix it in 7 days or face daily fines." As she strutted off, our neighbor Tom Grayson waved from across the street. That evening, he brought over a lasagna and a warning. "Be careful with Margaret," he murmured in Mom's kitchen. "She's obsessed with controlling this place." Last year, the Lopez's had to sell after she drowned them in fines. Over what? I asked, uneasy. Their son's wheelchair ramp didn't match the approved aesthetic. That night, I dug into HOA laws until my vision blurred. The property line claim was nonsense. Mom's garden was legal. I grabbed her official survey from a dusty file cabinet and was measuring the border the next morning when Margaret's sleek BMW rolled up. A lanky man in polished shoes stepped out beside her. "This is Leonard Hayes, our HOA attorney," she announced. "We're documenting ongoing violations." I held up the survey. "This says Mom's garden is within her property. Your new survey wasn't disclosed to us. That's illegal here." Leonard squinted at the paper, but Margaret's face flickered. Surprise, maybe, before turning cold. "The other issues stand," she said. I repainted the mailbox and trimmed the maple, not because they were real violations, but to spare Mom the stress. For a week, things calmed. I helped Mom with rehab exercises and planted tomatoes out back. Then one morning, a notice was taped to our door. "Emergency HOA meeting, 7 p.m., mandatory attendance." At the community center, Margaret presided over 50 uneasy neighbors like a dictator. "Due to recent defiance of HOA authority," she began, glaring at me, "we're enforcing stricter measures. We've hired a compliance officer for daily inspections." A gray-haired man in the back spoke up. "How much will this cost?" "Dues rise by $75 monthly," she replied coolly. Murmurs filled the room. I stood. "Who owns the compliance company?" Her pause was telling. "Hayes Safety Solutions, highly qualified, owned by Leonard Hayes." "Isn't that a conflict of interest?" I pressed. The meeting erupted. Some neighbors thanked me afterward. Others told me to back off. Tom introduced me to Lisa Chun, a former HOA board member who'd quit 6 months prior. "They're after your mom's lot," she whispered as people left. "Corner properties are gold for a commercial rezoning scheme." "What scheme?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not here. Library, tomorrow." That night, I found our front door unlocked, despite locking it, and my HOA research folder misplaced. The next morning, I woke to machinery tearing up Mom's rose garden. Margaret supervised, smirking. "What are you doing?" I yelled, barefoot in pajamas. "Correcting violations per bylaws," she said, handing me a paper claiming HOA access rights. "This is trespassing," I shouted, showing the survey. "Your mom signed this agreement decades ago," she countered. I called the police. Officer Bennett arrived, reviewed the documents, and shrugged. "Civil matter. The HOA has authority. They left Mom's roses in a heap, digging odd, evenly spaced holes they filled with something before covering them. Drainage upgrades," Margaret said unprompted. That night, Mom wept over her garden. I vowed to replant, though we knew it wouldn't be the same. Those roses dated back to my birth. At the library, Lisa showed me maps and files, a plan to turn Willow Creek into a shopping plaza. Mom and 5 others had refused to sell. They're forcing foreclosures with fines, she said. A black SUV tailed us as we left. I snapped its plate. Mom was on the porch when I got home, staring at the ruined garden. The soil's off, she murmured. Kneeling, I spotted a thin wire poking out. Don't move, I whispered, pulse racing. I called Officer Bennett. Something's buried here from yesterday's work. He arrived with Sergeant Carter, a grizzled vet. Carter examined the wire, face darkening. Back to the cruiser. Call the bomb squad. Bomb squad. I stammered. I saw trigger wires like that in Iraq, he said. This is an explosive. Police cordoned off the street. Bomb techs in bulky suits confirmed M14 anti-personnel mines. Military grade, lethal within 15 feet. Lined our property. Detective Riley, sharp-eyed and calm, took over. Who'd want to harm you? She asked. The HOA, I said. Margaret supervised the digging. Palmer landscaping workers did it. She scribbled notes. Witnesses. Neighbors saw it. Tom's cameras might have caught our yard. At Tom's, we reviewed footage. Margaret and Leonard with 2 others planted the mines at 2 a.m. 3 nights earlier. That's our proof, Riley said tightly. Mom stayed with my sister, Claire, an hour away. I remained with police. They found a map in a suspect's bag, marking mines on holdout properties, a conspiracy beyond harassment. Margaret was arrested, claiming ignorance, but Riley didn't buy it. That night, a text from an unknown number. Back off, or next time your mom won't dodge it. Sleep eluded me. At dawn, Riley updated me. All 4 suspects, Margaret, Leonard, and 2 goons, were in custody. Kyle Pierce, Margaret's son, bought a burner phone tied to the threat. Palmer's office revealed this wasn't their first rodeo. The neighborhood revolted. Half the HOA board quit. Lisa hosted a meeting to make things right. Riley later showed me Apex development docs from Pierce's company. My mom topped a target list for a mall project. A remote detonator found on Kyle suggested more mines lingered. Photos of Margaret and crew planting them sealed it. This is organized crime, Riley said. FBI's coming in. Sarah fled with her kids after a break-in. A fake reporter, Margaret's son Edward, tried to intimidate us, but was caught. At an emergency HOA meeting, I wore a wire. Margaret spun lies about Ms. Mapped lots, offering buyouts. I accused her of the mines. Her husband, Victor, lunged at me. Both were arrested mid-chaos. Another threat followed. Sell by Friday or bury too. Kyle, desperate, claimed innocence and offered evidence. An encrypted video arrived. Victor and Apex CEO Henry Brooks plotting illegal moves against Mom, with a mob-tied figure offering permanent solutions. 3 men soon approached our hotel. FBI raids hit the next day. Margaret, Victor, Brooks, judges, cops, and the DA fell. Apex's real plan? An aquifer under Mom's land for water profiteering, not a mall. We dissolved the HOA, formed a council, and Mom led the gardening committee. Her roses bloomed again. At the cookout, neighbors toasted new beginnings, free from fear. Sometimes, protecting what matters means risking it all.